back. We're really excited to be here with you today. We got an overwhelming response from our last session together. You're like this amazing book of knowledge that everyone's ready to open up and start reading. So thank you for coming back with us today.
No, this is fun, and it gives us something interesting to do and really good stuff to share with the public, which I think is great. So thank you for inviting me.
Besides great, it's beyond necessary because each and every one of us want to become the best, even for now, virtual representation, the best virtual representation of ourselves. So I'm happy to have you on board today.
Great.
What are we embarking on today? I mean, there's so many, I don't even know where to begin. Where are you taking us today?
Well, I thought that I would talk about something that I deal with in the clinical trenches on a regular basis, and that's obviously in my specialty, chronic foot and ankle pain, but the underlying mechanisms of pain, regardless of where it occurs in your body, are basically the same. So I kind of wanted to start with talking about the reasons why people come in with chronic pain and to kind of shift it away from what people are used to. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm in chronic pain because the last cortisone shot wasn't strong enough, or the pill the doctor gave me wasn't strong enough, or he didn't do enough physical therapy. I mean, those are things that on the surface might seem like the reason why people continue to suffer. But in my experience over all the years I'm doing this, it doesn't really have that much to do with it. And as a former patient of mine, you kind of know the route we take when we're evaluating patients and when we're going through an assessment to try and understand why somebody has an issue that's been ongoing.
Well, and yes, you hit it right on the nose. I mean, I had a chronic problem. It happened to be in my foot, but that my mother took me to multiple doctors when I was a kid, and nobody was able to offer a solution. No one went back to the root of the problem. I mean, like you said, the shots, the pills. I mean, it's sometimes it doesn't even do anything, and you're like, what did I do wrong? It wasn't enough. I just think people are going the wrong routes. And I was very fortunate enough to have been introduced to you in your practice and the amazing things that you do. And that's why I'm happy to be able to share your knowledge, your expertise to help others, because I spent years, you saw me when I first came into the practice, I was like desperate, in pain. I couldn't walk. Right. Pretty much. And I was like ready to go in. I told you the truth. I would have gone to any doctor and said, open up my foot, do what you got to do. I want to walk again. I want to get up on my feet again. And and it wasn't easy, but I mean, you really just, I can't speak, there's not enough I could say to really, I was able to walk again because I followed what you did and because I was in the right hands. And I got in the right hands, it got me back on my feet.
So I want people to understand that we approach these chronic pain patients through two different pathways. One is the epigenetic pathway. That means we look at things outside of the patient's genome. So we're looking at diet, lifestyle, and environmental influences on the immune system. And then in certain really difficult cases, we'll even look at the genome, which means we look for genetic mutations, things that might interfere with healthy immune function or healthy immune response. The bottom line on all of the chronic pain that I treat is trying to do my best to find the reasons why the patient has chronic Achilles tendonitis or ankle arthritis or plantar fasciitis or neuropathies or whatever I happen to see. And there's a lot of different chronic pain syndromes that we see. But we start simple. We look at the diet. If a patient's diet is deficient in nutrients and it doesn't have all of the prerequisites for setting up the cofactors for healing, we'll struggle. If a patient doesn't drink enough water and they're not hydrating properly, we're going to struggle. If a patient is not using proper food combining techniques, or they're over-consuming man-made products, refined sugars, and things of that nature, we're going to have problems. So we want to do everything we can to support the pathways that ultimately deliver what we call homeostasis, which is the optimal state of health, the body functioning as best as it can. In states of homeostasis, the body detoxifies efficiently, repairs efficiently, replenishes, replaces, it does everything it has to do. So we start with diet. Second thing we look at, lifestyle. Does the patient have a very stressful lifestyle? Have they had issues in their life that created chronic in their mind and in their hearts? That changes stress hormone secretion, it changes neurotransmitter function. So we can simply do lab work to look at that and balance it naturally with what's called targeted amino acid therapy. High stress hormone levels suppress immune function.
That's been a
Suppressed immune
big,
function means suppressed repair function.
yep, that's
And of course,
a big,
during this pandemic, stress hormones are at an all-time high. So we're going to see the after effects of this for a long time to come. We want to know if the patient is properly exercising, and if they are they properly exercising or are they improperly exercising? Are they combining stretching into their protocols? Are they doing the things they have to do to ensure the fact that what they're doing isn't banging their head on the wall and trying to get rid of a headache? And then we look at environmental influences, and that reaches out to so many different issues because there are environmental stresses, crowding, pollution, home life, relationships. There's all these different things that come into play. And in a state of chronic pain, we have to look at all of these different issues. And then we can do lab work to look at the patient's genome. We look for genetic mutations, and when we pick them up, we can correct them. Sometimes as simply as offering some types of vitamin supplements, changing the diet, doing stress reduction techniques, things of that nature. So we combine a lot of different issues. If the patient's consuming foods that seem healthy, but they have sensitivity reactions to them, that's also a problem. So it runs deep, and the assessment isn't always quick and simple, but we're looking at a long-term picture here. I don't go for short-term relief. I'm not going to shoot someone up with cortisone so they can say, hey, doc, I feel great, and then they're back in the office in a month. The goal here is to optimize health by uncovering all the different mechanisms that might be interfering with immune function and making it harder for the body to heal. Once those are settled, then we can jump into treating the symptoms. In my practice, all of the treatments are natural. We support the body to heal rather than suppress symptoms. I use homeopathic injections. I do something called prolotherapy. We do PRP, which is platelet injections. We do amniotic allograft injections and stem cell derivatives. There's all different things we can do to push the body to heal. We correct the diet. We make sure the patient's hydrated. Sometimes we support with certain supplements to make sure the patient has everything they need to get the body to heal. Then we do certain techniques, especially in the foot, to increase blood flow into the area that's struggling to heal. And ultimately, as long as we have a patient who's patient with the process and isn't looking for a magic bullet, we get to the finish line, meaning the patient's foot and ankle pain is no longer hobbling them, but we also have a patient that's healthier in the long run. And to me, that's the key to treating all chronic pain patients. It's not easy to help someone by putting them on opiates. It's not easy to help someone by putting them on cortisone and non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. That does not make the patient healthier. And I'm a very keen advocate of getting patients off these medications so we can detoxify them and improve their health. And I hope that answers the question in a short and concise way. I know
I don't know.
nobody's going to memorize what I just said, but it's just an overview and it gives you an idea of how we approach these things.
Well, I mean, I personally went through all of that myself. And
Right.
when I first came in and we met, and you said the same exact thing. Most of the terms that you used, I would never heard of, I wasn't aware of, and mine was truly a chronic problem. But no one used the word chronic, but it was. No one broke
Right.
down, got to the root of it. I mean, you sat patiently, and you had to remind me to be patient as well, because. But even though I had to be patient, with each time I came in, with each session, I did the prolotherapy, and I was patient, but I started seeing results for the
Mhm.
first time. It wasn't
Right.
just like masking the symptoms, and then I'd leave and I'd be in the same boat, which was my problem for years. But the
Right.
biggest thing was also the fear factor. I
Right.
was not able to walk. And nobody was offering me any options or solutions. So it's a pretty big deal. And I'm very attached to my feet. So it was very important. But all the changes, you were there, you explained thoroughly, you had to re-explain thoroughly, because this is something these are not solutions that are given on a normal basis. It would be
Right,
the right
right,
solution, but
right,
they're not given. So it's
right.
stuff we're not familiar with, so we have to be reminded. So but I've seen it, and we did the before and after. It's right there.
Hmm.
The x-rays don't lie
Right, right.
themselves.
And the sonograms we did.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly, the sonograms that we did. So I think you hit on something key. I mean, I hear people complaining about chronic problems all the time with no options or solutions. So I
Well,
think it's,
you just reminded me to say one more thing, if you don't mind me
oh,
interjecting.
not wrong.
And I think this is something that people should really understand, because people think inflammation is a terrible thing and it's something that should be suppressed and eliminated. So I just want to teach your viewers a very quick understanding of inflammation. There are two basic pathways that run the body. One is called primary inflammation. That's a pathway that detoxifies, repairs, replaces, and replenishes. It's active mostly while we sleep, which is why we sleep. It's how the body repairs and replenishes all the things it has to fix. That pathway doesn't produce pain. It's the pathway that gets us to optimal health. On the other side of the coin, when the body is struggling to mount an efficient primary response, it defaults into a secondary pathway called chronic inflammation. That's the pathway that gives pain, inflammation, swelling, degenerative changes, all the things that we know relate to inflammation. When we use medicines to suppress the pathway of chronic inflammation, we get a patient that feels better. Unfortunately, those medicines also suppress the pathway of primary inflammation. So we don't get healing, we don't get repair. Most importantly, we can't get an efficient detoxification. So people on these drugs have to have their livers monitored because the body can't clear out toxins efficiently. So I want people to understand, don't go running for an Advil every time you have an ache or a pain or some kind of pain reliever. Get to the root of it. Understand why you have it, because that's what ultimately gives you a better state of health than managing symptoms.
That's
Thank you for letting me say that.
no, that, of course. I mean, that's like something that's key and important. So, which leads me to my next question is, how do we start? I have this chronic problem. I have this pain. They've given me the pain medications. I've tried to take the Advils, the this, the that. I'm burning a hole in my stomach trying to treat it,
Right,
in the classic
right.
ways. So here I am. How do I begin? How do we reach?
Well,
Like, what do we do?
my recommendation is to reach out to a doctor that practices functional medicine. And that's basically what I'm describing here, is looking at all the systems of the body, seeing what's functioning well and what's not functioning well, and supporting those parts of the system that are not functioning optimally. So we call it functional medicine. I don't like the term holistic medicine, even though it is a holistic approach, because every doctor that's treating a body part still has to look at the whole person and the whole patient. So functional medicine provides a lot of answers for the people of traditional medicine that hasn't gotten them the results that they want. And there are practitioners in every state. I'm not going to say there's a lot of us, and I may be the only one in foot and ankle care in the country doing this, but there are doctors out there that are doing this kind of functional medicine, holistic approach to patients that are suffering, and not just with pain, with many chronic illnesses.
No, and it's great. That would have been another question. Is can you state the difference between functional and holistic? It's
Yes.
similar, but it's very different in the same respect, I believe.
Well, I think the connotation of holistic medicine became using natural remedies. Now, using natural remedies doesn't always get you the results you want, because if the underlying mechanisms of the problem have not been addressed, a vitamin or an herb or a homeopathic medicine might fail. And what we often see in patients that are trying things on are failed responses to what they think should help them, because the underlying mechanism hasn't been addressed. So in other words, you can't take curcumin for your inflammation and fish oil for your inflammation if you're living on Twinkies and cupcakes and beer.
Yeah,
It's just not going to work,
it's not happening.
right?
Hold on, Doc.
Okay.
Thank God I can take that out. Okay, good.
Okay.
That's a blooper I'm going to save, by the way.
Okay.
Pick up from where you left off.
No, I'm just trying to reiterate the point that holistic doesn't necessarily mean we're getting into an understanding of mechanics. Functional medicine makes a diagnosis and then tries to find the reasons why that patient has that diagnosis at this time. And that has to do with understanding all of the systems of the body and looking for the things that need to be supported. When that happens, we treat the symptoms naturally. But until that happens, natural therapies, holistic therapies, are probably not going to succeed the same way the traditional medicines and cortisone shots and painkillers didn't help. So I think that's the basic difference, is really getting into a great understanding of mechanisms of pathology before we treat the symptoms.
Well, judging on the feedback that I've gotten, I'm sure that you're going to be hearing from a lot of people that have been joining in for our web series. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
They can call my office at 516-369-3172. They can also peruse my website, which is drrobertkornfeld.com. It's DRROBERTKORNFELD.com.
Great. Doc, thank you truly for joining us today and just keep enlightening us and giving us realistic solutions to real problems.
Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure.
Looking forward to our next session together.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Doc. Be well.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.